Okay.
Hey, welcome, chat. Welcome to Tuesday night Innocent Lives Foundation charity stream. We're bringing back Fireside Chats. I am, as always, your host, Nick Kelly, aka Rev3 Dude, and tonight we have a very special guest. We have very special guests, plural. And running the show tonight is our very own Aaron. You want to introduce yourself, to what we're going to be covering tonight, and to talk about who
Yes.
our guest is? Yep.
Yes, absolutely. So let me start. My name is Erin Maloney, and I am the Director of Wellness here at Innocent Lives Foundation. And my role is essentially to make sure that our team, our volunteers, are, living their best lives and doing well in spite of the work they do, and to make sure that they have support in every way. So tonight, though, what I'm really excited about is to introduce you all to Lynda Harlos, who is a new volunteer with us. And I want to read her bio, and then we'll kind of dive into some good Q&A. And anybody that has questions too in chat who are watching us live, please feel free to add too. We want this as interactive as possible. So here's a little information about Lynda. She's quite achieved a lot in her time. So to start, I always want to give a trigger warning. We are discussing heavy content. This is Twitch, so I do know that we can have many topics from light cooking to deep. And I just want to warn everybody that the content of ILF is child sexual assault material. Therefore, we do tend to talk about heavy things. So when I do introduce Lynda, there will be some topics I just want you to be mentally prepared for. So imagine discovering your child has been sex trafficked. What would you do? If you're Lynda Harlos, you start a fire, a blazing fire that would wipe out ignorance, denial, and misunderstanding within families, communities, and the world. A fire that would ignite passion in others to stand up and join the fight against domestic sex trafficking. Lynda is a sex trafficking and abuse prevention educator for parents and professionals who are in contact with children between the ages of 2 to 25. She is also a keynote speaker, author, family coach, and host of a Fireside Chat podcast, which I'll get back to in a minute. As a mother of a sex trafficking victim, she endeavors to turn their pain into purpose globally in the hopes of preventing victimization. In doing so, she works with many organizations in North America, including several victim services across Canada, Shared Hope, Innocent Lives Foundation, Nurses Against Human Trafficking, Courage for Freedom, and many more. Lynda's newest book, Walk a Mile, is available on Amazon, and it talks about her struggle as a parent, realizing that what she thought was a teenage hormonal issue was her daughter being lured, groomed, and gamed into sex trafficking. She has conducted many interviews and spoken at events to spread awareness, including a TEDx talk, which is phenomenal, CBC, Global News, CTV North, 360 Kids, the National Council of Jewish Women of Canada, the Toronto Star, and many more. You can check her work out and watch training videos on her website or on her YouTube channel, and that is at parentwithpurpose.ca. So again, I highly recommend you watch any videos that you can. So welcome, Lynda. And one of the things I wanted to mention about the Fireside Chats is we used to have these in the past for any of you new followers. And these are just very casual, but educational and powerful discussions surrounding the whole content of child exploitation. And we wanted to bring these back because we think they're very important. And Lynda Harlos happened to come in as a volunteer at a perfect time where Shane and I recognized what a wonderful speaker she was and what an asset she could be here on the stream for us. So I wanted to welcome you, Lynda, and thank you for coming on to this first one as a guest, and you will essentially be the host from this point forward.
Thank you, Erin. I appreciate being here, and it's been a pleasure getting to know all of you guys. It's a real family feeling around here.
Good. It very much is.
It is.
Absolutely. So if you don't mind, I was going to hop into some questions. But like I said to anybody viewing this right now, if you have additional questions you would like to fire out, we do have people moderating our chat so they can actually let us know if there's anything they would want us to propose to you. But otherwise, I'm going to go through some questions that we have prepared already, if that's okay with you.
Absolutely.
And before you get there, what an introduction. Good
Oh,
Lord.
I know.
That
I
is,
know. I like to do that one.
yeah, I know. That was phenomenal.
It
And this
was.
is why when we were put in touch with Lynda, we first started talking, it was an absolute no-brainer if
Absolutely.
to for us to begin to join together and help tackle this problem together. So I am thrilled you're here,
Yeah.
Lynda. Thank you.
Yeah.
I
Your
actually had
passion
I actually
exudes.
had a friend write that first part, and she had used it as an introduction to me on one of her podcasts, and
Oh,
I fell in love with it, and I said, "Am I allowed to borrow that?" She goes, "Absolutely." So,
it's it's a wonderful one, and it really describes in every aspect. And again, your passion for this content comes through, and it came through to Shane and I, and that's why we thought, you have a little bit more influence than behind the scenes. So we definitely wanted to put you out here as our fireside chat host because I think it's a really good position for you. So we're thrilled that you're making it your own. It's gonna, be branded to you. It's gonna be guests you bring on, and we here at ILF 100% support it, and we'll be here anytime joining in as well. So, yes. So, first question I would like to ask is what inspired you to start the work you're doing to make the world a better place? And I know some of that was in your bio, but I thought it might be nice for the audience to know that in general too from you.
well, it kind of brings the whole story to light here, in a way. But honestly, the thing that inspired me was my daughter.
Mm-hmm.
She had gone through this, so she had been gang raped and got pregnant due to it. Due to that pregnancy, she got ostracized by her friends. So her social life fell apart, and we didn't know about that part.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where her vulnerability kind of shone through to the person who noticed and wanted to exploit her. So she had spent a lot of years, almost 10, had gone through all of this, and we only knew some of it. We didn't know about him being a trafficker. We just thought he was a boyfriend that we didn't like.
Mm-hmm.
But then when she found out what it was, and she found out literally by accident because she was volunteering at Victim Services here, and a police officer had come in and was educating them on sex trafficking.
Mm-hmm.
And when she heard what it was, she realized that's actually what had happened to her, because for 9 years, she thought she had just let her moral slip, and that somehow he convinced her that this was the only way they were going to be able to do this, or she was going to then be a single mom, blah, blah, blah. A big story on that, all in my book. No point going into that tonight. But so for 9 years, she lived with this shame and horror, thinking that she had allowed this to happen to herself. So when she discovered what it was, that's when she had the courage to come and tell us what had happened. So then when she told us what happened, now she's volunteering at schools and she's telling her story 2 to 3 times a day. And I went, well, damn, I can't let her do this by herself. I
Mm-hmm.
know that I need to get out there and I
Mm-hmm.
need to educate adults who have children in their lives, whether it's their own children or whatever. It doesn't matter to me, because there was so much that we missed, that if we had have known, like it's,
Yeah.
ignorance is not bliss, and
Mm-mm.
it's no excuse, especially nowadays with the internet. I mean, I didn't have that back as much when I was parenting, but still.
Mm-hmm.
And I just didn't want anybody else to have to put their head on the pillow at night with that being the reason somebody got abused or trafficked. I mean, it's bad enough that it happens, but to know that I could have prevented that, I don't live with the guilt anymore, because you don't know what you
Yep.
don't know. But I'm out here to make sure people know. So then that's not the
Absolutely.
reason something happens. So my daughter is 100% my inspiration and why I do what I do.
I love hearing
Can,
that.
can I ask a couple questions
Mhm.
about? So you just mentioned that the internet wasn't around at this
Not
time, or
much.
wasn't not much. So about what year period? Like what are we looking at here
So
that you came to this realization roughly?
I found out that she was trafficked in 2019.
Okay.
So she was trafficked 9 years before that.
Okay. Like
So
Okay.
we
2010.
were, I mean, she had seen him at the schoolyard in the smoking area, and he had noticed her. But then he met with her on, what was the social media back there?
Oh,
MySpace?
MySpace. Yep.
MySpace.
MySpace.
So that's
Mhm.
how old we're talking. It
Mhm.
like, we're like, yeah. And we had the dial up,
Mhm.
so
Mhm.
yeah, so we didn't, I mean, we didn't look at Google, and we didn't search things out, and there wasn't podcasts to find out information about things, really, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I mean, nowadays I don't think people have an excuse for not knowing something. except for the fact that they don't know they should educate themselves. And so that's why I'm out here.
Absolutely. What
Yeah,
a great cause.
we run into that all the time. People don't know what they don't know.
Right.
And it blindsides people all the time. So that's why we all do what we do, which is to raise this awareness, to get people to start asking questions.
Yep.
I've got one other quick question. You said that she had a boyfriend you didn't much like. I was just curious, is that like, in your opinion, is that a listen to your gut type of thing? Maybe it should, if you find yourself as a parent in that type of situation, that you should be like, okay, maybe that's a yellow flag. Maybe I should pay more attention. I'm like, because we're parents, right? We're not always going to like every person that's going home.
That's true. That's true.
Is there a balance there?
There is. And I think the balance is, I like the fact that you said yellow flag instead of a red one, because when you're not sure, you don't want to throw somebody under a bus because you just come off a podcast and heard about sex trafficking and want to go around starting pointing the finger at everybody. So I really like the yellow flag. I've never heard that, but I love that. But yes, I think it's very important that you do what you can when you feel your gut instinct, like you said, raising its head, and you need to be starting to have some conversations. We had conversations, but of course our conversations were more centered around the fact that we thought it was abusive. And we weren't 100% sure even about that, because my husband and I didn't come from abusive relationships. We were basically each other's first, so we didn't have even exes where there was any abuse. So we really weren't even sure what we were looking for in that. But we just knew something wasn't right. And so abuse was just starting to come to the forefront. People were just starting to talk about it. So to us, we thought, well, maybe that's what that is. We did know that it was more than just that we didn't like him. We knew that. We just couldn't pinpoint it. We did ask a lot of questions. We did constantly, and you'll see it in my book. Again, that's the one thing. We always had her over for coffee, and we were trying to needle out some facts to figure out what was going on, and always try to just make sure that we were there for her when and if she decided to disclose. So I think the yellow flag is really important. And when you see a yellow flag, that means it's time to start asking questions, be attentive, and be their safe space. I talk a lot about being the safe place for your kids, not only for your kids, but for a lot of people. And that just simply means them knowing that you're going to love them no matter what they disclose. There's not going to be any criticism. There's not going to be any judgment. You're just going, our kids already know what we believe or feel because we raised them. So if they're coming to disclose something that they know you're not going to like, and they know that you've always stood there with your hands on your hips every time they've come and told you anything, they're not going to come and talk to you about it. So that's the last thing you want, because potentially somebody out there who is ready and looking for somebody to exploit will be the person that will become their safe space. And then they're going to exploit them. So those yellow flags are huge. So I love that question, Shane. It is definitely means questions need to be asked. Spend quality time with this person. Ask questions, non-invasive questions. Just make it so that they know that you're there for them.
That's great. I love that, Lynda. That is great.
Thanks for letting me go off script. It'll probably happen more. Just so
no problem.
Yes, it will. But they're always good questions. The other thing I wanted to point out, Lynda, when listening to your TED Talk, one of the things I noticed you had said, and I think it is such a common misconception, and I'm so glad you're yelling it from the rooftops, is when we think of trafficking, we think of like literally somebody kidnapping a girl off the streets, a girl or boy, and traveling across the continent, another country, going far away, not happening in our neighborhoods, not happening under our noses, happening in maybe third world countries, but no, it is happening right under our noses.
Yes.
In fact, like you said, here's your daughter, good home life, everything seems to be fine, and here you said people took advantage of her vulnerabilities, and, what teenage or young adult doesn't have insecurities?
Absolutely.
And, it is so many are susceptible to this, regardless of their home life. And that's what I think people really need to know. Like you said, it is about the awareness, it's about the relationship with your child to open that dialogue. These are the critical pieces. I happen to work for many years in, I'm in the Pocono, Scranton area, Pennsylvania. So I am between literally Manhattan and Philadelphia. Like I'm in a thoroughfare, if you will. And so this is a major area of trafficking that people don't realize, and so when I was in the schools working as a therapist, there were days where if a student wasn't in for a few days, I was a nervous wreck because I thought, are they in a motel somewhere? What are they doing? And like I said, people don't realize that. I would point to motels and be like, you know what that place is, and people would have no idea. So I think it's, again, the awareness is so critical because I do not think people associate with being right here in our homes in our towns. So,
well, and our media has a bias towards what sex trafficking is.
absolutely.
And they, the Sound of Freedom and the movie Taken, both great movies and great aspects of showing you what
awareness
international trafficking is.
Yes.
But it doesn't touch on the domestic. And I have been begging somebody to do a really good high-end movie on domestic sex trafficking. And if you put 5 or 6 different potential domestic sex trafficking victims in that movie, and they're all sex trafficked in different ways, and people could see how easy this is, it would be a phenomenal movie. And then
yes, it would.
people intersecting in each other's lives, and nobody knows the other one is having the same thing happen to them.
Absolutely.
It would be a powerful movie.
Absolutely.
But we have that bias because we're not showing it in the Hollywood movie kind of sector. We have now podcasts and some things, and so we are learning some things, but that's not hitting the people who, because if you don't know that you need to learn this, how are you going to know you need to know this?
Exactly.
And the only way you can do that is reach them in a way that they will see it and hear it. And they're not going to come to podcasts like this if they don't realize they need that education.
Absolutely.
So that's the hard part, but yeah.
No, great. And like I said, I think that's wonderful. And you said it would make a phenomenal, documentary movie. I think it would be a very, very powerful tool for sure. So great. So, kind of this rolls right into that next question. Can you share a project or an initiative you're currently involved in that's making a positive impact in this area?
Well, yeah, I think it's called Innocent Lives Foundation. That's what it's called. I do a lot of speaking, and I love doing that. That is my passion. I don't know whether or not I was just born with this, and standing up on stage is not difficult for me. Bearing my soul to being transparent isn't difficult for me. The odd look from a parent here and there, because they're judging me, but we're going to get that regardless.
Exactly.
So all those things are second nature to me, and I'm like, I think I was built for this, even though I didn't realize it until all this came into our lives. So I'm not happy about why or how this came about, but then I just realized that that's just one segment of things that I could actually be doing. And it's a good one. And it's what I need to be doing because I do believe it's a calling. But then there's so many other things that are out there, so many other initiatives out there that are just doing such phenomenal work that with what I'm doing and what they're doing, can we be a good fit? Can we help each other? Can we make what we're doing better?
Absolutely.
And I've been out there looking probably for 2-3 months before I came across you guys.
Wow.
And instantly, was talking to Chris and his wife, and I just felt very comfortable with them. So, and I love what you guys are doing. I mean, the fact that you're rooting at the predators, I'm trying to make it so nobody becomes a victim.
Yes.
And in a roundabout way, you guys are doing the same thing because you're going in there to try to stop the predators from doing what they're doing. So we're both very preventative in what we're doing. We're just doing it in different ways. But our end goal is the same. So that's probably my biggest initiative right now. I am also looking to work to volunteer for another organization to go into schools with a curriculum and teach the kids, because for some reason I really struggle with making parents listen. They just don't. Again, you don't know what you don't know. But if you have a captive audience of a bunch of kids in a classroom and they have to be there, you can grab their attention really quick if the curriculum is good. So I found a company that I think the curriculum is really good, and so we're working on seeing whether or not I can start working with that here in Canada, because it's an American system. So that's the next one, and I haven't got that nailed down yet, so I don't want to give the name, but
Yeah, but that is wonderful. I love that. Again, because I do feel like the children right now are kind of the experts. At least,
Yeah.
you know, in my generation, my teenagers teach me half the stuff.
Yep.
You know, so you know, Twitch, Discord. I didn't learn any of that until I came here to ILF because fortunately, people here are very tech savvy too. So, but like you said, the kids are the experts half the time. So I love that that's where you're kind of focusing. I think that's very important. Obviously, parents too, but I do think kids do need to hear it that it is a real problem here. You know, so. Yeah.
Okay.
No.
So I'm really, really excited to hear more about how this works with the schools, because I think earlier you triggered something when you were talking about the movies and only getting a little slice of the picture.
Mm-hmm.
And when we were all growing up, that little slice was stranger danger.
Yeah.
So
Yes.
all of a sudden we were being taught something, and that was great. But still, 93% of all child sexual abuse happens with friends and family. And
Right.
no one wants to talk about that.
That's
No.
right.
So you're looking at a 7% slice of pie that they're going to great lengths to train kids in school on, and it's wonderful. And I think we're seeing some of that here happening too. And so having people with boots on the ground who have gone through this being able to teach is going to make that teaching be so much more effective in the long run.
Yeah.
So
I
For
agree.
sure.
I'm excited to hear more about
Me
what you
too.
come up with that.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. That is absolutely wonderful. I love it. You know, leading into the next question, what change do you hope to see in the world as a result of all this work? And sidebar, before you answer that, actually, I'll repeat the question. But your daughter, by the way, this has to be so valuable for her. Not only did you not like accept and obviously run to help, you then made this like a passion of yours in life. So I mean, this is just such a wonderful message for her and other survivors to see. You know, here's a parent happened right under your nose, and you use this as a massive tool rather than you know, a woe is me type situation. So really, really proud of that. So leading back to the question is, what change do you hope to see in the world as a result of your work that you're doing in this space?
Okay, so we're going to go back to that question in a second, but I
Yes.
want to touch on something that you touched on. First of all, and I usually remember to do this at the beginning of an interview always, but my daughter, even though she's not working in schools anymore, has given me her blessing to keep going and doing what I'm doing. As a matter of fact, her expression to me was, Mama Bear, you keep fighting the good fight. And so she's given me her blessing to keep talking about our story, because it's not just her story, it's our story.
Of course, it is.
But I don't ever want the audience thinking that I am in any way, shape, or form exploiting her or our story without her knowing that this is what I'm doing and I have her blessing. So,
Wonderful.
but the changes I hope to see is that we understand that everybody has the potential to be exploited. It's not just because your life is miserable, or because you had one thing happen to you, or because you are a homeless person, or because you're a drug addict. All these major vulnerabilities for sure are major, and they are easy targets. These guys are good. They know what they're doing, and any vulnerability is an easy target. And I'm talking about any vulnerability. So we have to remember, we have to think about this in a child's brain. Their brain isn't fully developed yet. So they're going to school and they're getting picked on, or their grades aren't good, or whatever. That's huge to them. And so they're extremely vulnerable. Somebody comes along and then makes them feel smart, even though their grades aren't good. Somebody comes along and starts protecting them from the bullies. They've got them. It's that simple. Somebody goes online and just finds out what it is that child needs or wants, that for whatever reason that need isn't being fulfilled, either because, and I'm not saying parents need to go out there and fulfill every child's needs and wants, because that's
Of
ridiculous.
course.
You can't
Yeah.
do that
Yeah.
either.
No.
But that's all it takes. And so what I'd really like to be able to teach the world is that there is not a single person who is not vulnerable. There is not a single person who hasn't gone through trauma. These words are not horrible words. These are life. We are all vulnerable at different times in our lives, and we've all been through some form of trauma. That doesn't make us weak. That doesn't make us not worthy. It makes us normal. We're human beings. And so if that is what the people who are going to exploit us are looking for, any of us any of us can be targeted. And that's what I'd like the world to know, so that we stop pointing the finger at trauma. We stop pointing the finger at people who've been abused. We stop pointing the finger at somebody feeling vulnerable about something, and say, how are you being vulnerable? How can I help you? Be that person that steps alongside of them, instead of making them feel even more vulnerable and then becoming an even bigger target.
Yep. What a great point. You think about, we're talking specifically about exploitation in the realm of sex trafficking. But think of, like you said, think of the phone calls going out to senior citizens to try to trick them. Think about the massive, Shane and I talk about, like, when a hurricane hits in Florida, there are scammers running to go take advantage of people. Like you said, we all have vulnerabilities. It could be financial, it could be fear, it could be anything. And all it takes is somebody to take advantage of that. And what a good point, because like you said, should not judge, because we've all been there. So absolutely. Great point. In leading into that, what are some of the biggest challenges that you've faced in trying to create this change, and how did you overcome them? Because this is hard. Like you said, you took 2 to 3 months to find, like, even a place that you would want to align with,
Yeah. The biggest challenge, I think, is it's just pulling people's heads out of the sand. That's the biggest challenge. You don't know what you don't know, and how do you make people realize that they don't know it? How do you, go and give them a gentle shake and say, hey, and then getting into places where people will let you do that, so that then you can do that, like getting into fundraisers or getting into events that allow for this, that's not necessarily what the theme is about, but because now you have a captive audience for whatever reason, and you can throw out that little line with a worm at the end of it and make them go, oh, that's the heart. And that's what I want to do. I just want to wake people up. I want, and it's not to be cruel and say, you know what, you're dumb, you didn't pay attention. No, it's because you don't know what you don't know. And I don't know how to reach people and let them know that they don't know this. And that's the toughest challenge. And I haven't overcome it yet, to be quite truthful with you, Erin. And that's, I can tell you, if I had my way, I would literally go anywhere in the world and talk about this, because I don't believe that this is just a North American issue. No. This is a global issue. And I would literally go anywhere in the world. And I truly believe, Shane, what you said is true, that when somebody's been through something like this, they have the influence to let you see how it happens, why it happens. I can stand up there and confidently say the lack of knowledge, not understanding what it is, thinking that it, couldn't happen to me because my kids never left the country, and then spewing off statistics and all the rest of it to make them know that I know what I'm talking about, and sharing our story. I have the power to do that. I just can't get into the places to do that. And so I don't know. So that's why now I'm looking for other places to volunteer and do things, because if I can't do it in one way, I'll find another. So
that's awesome. Going back to that passion of yours. Yes.
I can tell you, you're in good company.
Yes,
that's
you are.
one of the biggest challenges that we have, is just getting people. When I first ran across the ILF and Chris was talking to me about this, I was like, oh my God, how can we not be involved? How can I not do this?
Yep.
And so I early on expected everyone else to have my same reaction.
Mm-hmm.
And the very first person that I spoke to about this, I was super excited. I considered that person a mentor. Just completely blanked out, shut down, had no concept how to process any of this. And basically just, we don't talk anymore, because he won't. It's just, and so it's like, when you come into something with such a passion, and you anticipate everyone else should have also, sometimes even at this point, it's still shocking sometimes. When all we want to do is have a table somewhere, all we want to do is just, can we have 5 minutes, and people are like, no. And, it's really hard to fight that process. But you have to respect people, and you have to be sure that, you never know what other people are dealing with. There's all these things that are going on in the background, but ultimately you're right. It is really hard to
Yeah,
get people to give you a platform to have such a difficult discussion.
it really is.
And
And
not
oh, sorry, go ahead, Lynda. I'm sorry.
not even just out in the world. Honestly, my family struggles. They don't really want to talk about it either. They know what
Oh,
happened
yeah.
and it's done. And so we don't, when we're together as a family, we don't talk about it. It's done. It's in the past. They know what I do. They don't want to know specifics about what I do.
Yeah.
I can, even siblings, cousins, all the like people, in my own community, the minute I say what I do, they back up and they just, and they'll look at me and go, that doesn't happen here. Well, yeah, it happened to my daughter. And they want to run for the nearest door.
Mm-hmm.
They absolutely do. Very rarely do they not. And it's just, we used to do that about abuse, right? Before we
Yeah.
started really talking about abuse, that was the same reaction. If you'd start saying, well, I was abused by my husband. No, you weren't. And they head for the nearest door. They don't want to talk about it.
Absolutely.
Sexual abuse, especially for children, we don't want to talk about it. It's uncomfortable. And I get it. It's uncomfortable.
Mm-hmm.
But I'd rather be uncomfortable talking about that than having to be uncomfortable like I am now because my daughter went through it because I didn't know.
Absolutely.
They're two horrible choices, but one is definitely better. And so let's
Yep.
pick the better one.
I agree.
And
Preventative measures,
Yes.
absolutely.
yeah, I want to give out a shout out to I'm not gonna say this right, Nadat223 on chat saying this is absolutely necessary and it's brave for you to share your
It is.
experience
It is so brave.
to try to wake up other people to the reality. Yeah, you're absolutely right. Nadat223. This is the conversation. This is why we do what we're doing right now.
Absolutely. And I feel like once you're informed, once you know about it, it's almost like you can't unsee it. An example I have is, right in my town, there was a massage parlor that I knew was labor and sex trafficking. I knew it. I would say it till I was blue in my face to anybody that would come across, law enforcement, anybody. But because they were adults, nobody really listened. And then,
Yeah.
of course, it's been rated twice recently. And I've been thinking for about 3 or 4 years. And now it's rated. And I'm like, how would you have not known that that's what that place was? But I know it now. I know what to look for. We know what the signs are. We know how to spot
Yes.
somebody even being trafficked.
Yes.
But again, a lot of people don't. One good thing is I do see, and I'm sure you guys might be familiar too, is there's a really big campaign called "It's a Penalty." And Lynda, I'm not sure if you're familiar with it because it's a very Americanized type of place. But what I love is when I go to sporting events now, like big venues, or if I go to like a concert somewhere, the bathroom stalls are now lined with a lot of information about how to spot this. And I love it because I think, oh my goodness, like you're so right. It used to be, what if you are a victim of abuse? There'd be hotlines. Now it's how to spot somebody being trafficked. And I
It started.
love that because I
Yes.
feel like it is finally coming to light. I feel like abuse, like you said, we have now kind of somewhat not normalized, but at least normalizing getting next steps have help with. And same thing now with trafficking, seeing it so prevalent that, and I, again, could be spotted in these larger venues. I think it's
Yes.
great that they're bringing awareness right there. I mean, when I go to the bathroom, I'm like, yay, half the time I take a picture of it, but get very excited when I see that information just in plain sight.
Yes.
Somebody somewhere will register that, and I think that's so important. So yeah, no, that's great. But yeah, the big challenge is getting people to listen for sure.
Yep.
The
Yep.
audience. So leading into the next question, I know your daughter is a big inspiration here, but in terms of, other organizations or other people that kind of inspire you to do this, is there anybody else in your world that is really kind of behind you, with the lead, like friends, family, people like that?
My husband.
Oh,
He's right now, he's downstairs in the basement on his laptop trying to be real quiet so I can do this.
oh,
And
wonderful.
we live off of his retirement fund. It's not very big, but
Oh,
because I really don't get paid for any of the work that I do. So, and he just supports it 100%. He absolutely supports it.
that's
As far as
wonderful.
organizations, I do have a couple. I mean, Courage for Freedom is the one that I really started volunteering for first.
Nice.
Way back. And she gently pushed me out of the nest around 9 months in and said, I don't think this is the right fit for you. You have bigger things to do. Go do them. And she was right. And so a big shout out to Kelly for that, because she really was an inspiration to get me out there and really,
good.
you know, you get to the point where you're just not sure your story is worth it. Like it's just our lives. It's what we lived through. We made it. That's great. But you know, really, is there something to this? Like, why would anybody want to listen to our story? But so having her kind of push me out of the nest and do that was great.
Yes.
There's also a lot of victim services in Canada, and the one that I was working with, Carly Callis, she was just such a champion for me. And no matter what I did, no matter what I tried to do, she was always in the background, just cheering me on. I wrote the book and she read it and was cheering me on, was trying to do what she could. She got me into the Chief Gala to talk in the Chief Gala. There wasn't a time that I would ask her, even for the smallest favor, or ask the smallest question, that she wasn't there, answering me, making sure she replied to me. And she's very busy. She's the main person of victim services. She moved from our area to Toronto, and she still answers me. And this is like 5 years later, and she still answers me. And I just know she's in my corner. And I know that she's very proud of what I do. And she was there for us when we discovered what happened to Samantha. And she I did an interview with her on we didn't call it podcast back then, we called it talk show. But she was my major person I interviewed about this, and I learned so much about all of this because of her and what happened and how it happened. So she's another champion in my corner. So
I love that. That's wonderful. So important to have those people to keep you going,
yes.
you know?
It is. A couple of comments from our chat. Miss Greatness, by the way, phenomenal name. So powerful, actively showing freedom from shame and fear by speaking the truth. Nate at 223 commented again, your story is valuable and impactful. Never stop sharing.
Thanks, Nada.
Great piece of advice. Absolutely.
It does get to the point where because you do this every day, you just think you don't think it has an impact, right? Especially when you can't make people listen. But occasionally you'll have somebody come up, and believe it or not, I even have survivors come up now. And if they've been in one of my training workshops or even just heard me talk a little bit, they'll go, you know what, you have no idea how your story has healed my heart for my parents, because I only ever saw it from my side. And even if the parents were, weren't there for them, weren't a support system, they at least got to see the other side of that story that they lived a little bit, and understanding that there was a huge chance their parents didn't know. Whether or not they cared or not, once they found out, that's another not so good thing that they've had to live. But when I realized that I'm even helping survivors by just being a parent who's ready and willing to say, yeah, we screwed up, we missed it, we didn't know, and taking some of that off of the victim, it has been huge for them. And so I'm grateful when people come in and say something, because it's tough facing this every day, because you don't feel like you're making an impact. And especially, I mean, we do podcasts and interviews like this. I'm not standing in front of a live group anymore, because when you're in front of a live group, you can pinpoint people and you know that they're hearing you, and you know you're making an impact. But on this kind of platform, you don't see that. You don't get that vibe. You haven't got that energy. So when people do send me personal messages, it means the world. So
I love hearing that. And that's definitely the thing that probably helps you go, because again, while you feel it's redundant, while you maybe feel like, oh, I've repeated this, there's a new audience member every time. And like you said, you don't know what ears that's falling on. You also brought up a great point, and it just struck me when you said, for the survivor that approached you, in that you are helping their parents in turn deal with this. The new, I think it's a mini series, they would call it Adolescence. Trigger warning, if anybody watches it, trigger warning. It is a very heavy, deep show. It stuck with me. I've been a therapist for over 20-some years. That stuck with me for approximately 3 to 4 days. And the reason I bring it up, though, is because that movie shows, or the documentary series shows that the perspective of a parent being blindsided,
Yes.
basically, by what is going on with their very young 14-year-old child,
Yep.
you know, and what he's dealing with at that adolescent stage, and all that goes on online, and
Yep.
and again, and again, very well-intentioned parents, you could tell in it, and you know, it is fictional, but it's based on a lot of true stories pieced
It
together.
is. Absolutely.
And so you feel it. I mean, the emotion you feel from that show is
Yep.
is palpable. It's unreal. And so I definitely encourage people to see it if they are mentally prepared and if they want to see things from a parent perspective, because that's definitely what it shows. Another side bit, did you know each series, I think there's 4 episodes, was done in one shot, one streaming shot?
No, I did not know that.
No takes. Like one, I mean, to talk about the amount of the skill of acting of those people in that show, it was one take each episode, which I find phenomenal. It was like a play essentially, which is amazing. So,
and what is the name of the show again? Can
it's
you give it
called
again?
Adolescence,
Okay.
and I forget what platform is it.
It's Netflix, I
Netflix?
believe.
I believe it's Netflix as well.
I
Yeah.
watched it and cried. I mean,
Yes.
it was good though, because it did help you see things from a different point of view. I cried because I'm from that parent's point of view where I was excited.
That's what triggered me to think of that with you, because you were from that point of view.
Yeah.
You know, you don't think it. I mean, now you were on the survivor side, but still, I mean, these are parents, you know, Shane, just so you know, it's parents of a child. I'm not giving anything away, but the parents of the child who did a violent act is basically what you see, a horrific act, but then it unfolds, this stuff unfolds as it goes on. Just unreal. But again, people don't see things from that side. People don't think of you being impacted by that, you and your husband, and what that did to you guys. And you know, if your children, you know, your daughter probably has siblings, and what that, it's a whole family thing.
It is.
And people don't realize that.
It is.
So
yeah.
And
it's called Secondary Victims.
Yes. Absolutely. So a really good question, I think, here, especially that I want to get in of all the questions, because I think you bring a lot to this, is, in your opinion, what is one thing anyone, so I'm talking from a child to an adult, that they could do to start making a positive difference today?
The number one thing is to realize that everybody needs somebody to talk to. You know what, you're in the business of therapy and helping people with wellness. And so you probably know this even better than I do. But people pay thousands of dollars to therapy every single day because they don't have anybody to talk to. Lots of times they need that extra professional help. And I do believe that therapy is exceptionally needed. But sometimes, I mean, I knew a woman and she was going to therapy, and she'd been going to therapy for 30 years. And she said, really, it was because she felt like her therapy was her best friend. And that breaks my heart when I hear that. It's like, we really need to understand, especially when you're looking at somebody and you see sadness, or you realize that there's something going on in their life, that all you need to do is to acknowledge that you see them.
Yes.
Just let them be seen.
Absolutely.
Let them know that you spotted them, that you care. Now, that's precisely also what a trafficker will do. But you're doing it for the right reasons.
Good intentions, yes.
And so you have to go about this with wisdom, and you have to not be manipulative, and you have to not coerce them, and you have to not, you're doing it just simply because you're a human being who cares about other human beings, and you want to be there to help. And it's not something I think we need to go out and try to find 10 people and do this. No. You need to go out and find 1 or 2 people, and you don't need to go out searching. You just need to go out and start opening your eyes. That's it. Just open your eyes. You're going to find them.
Be observant. Yeah, be observant to your friends.
It could be, and it could be within your own circle.
It usually is.
You just need to say the words, "I'm here if you need me." That's all you need to say sometimes. Or, "Hey, let's grab lunch. Hey, let's get a coffee." If you see them down, just to say, just extend a little more. There's an entire model in the American school system that says all it takes is one adult, one positive adult in a child's life. It could be a coach, it could be a teacher, it could be a custodian, it could be anybody in their life. But if they are kind and not judgmental to a child, the amount of the statistics on how much their success rate goes up is unreal. Just one person. So like you said, be that one person.
Be that one person.
That's it. It is so simple. So that's a great takeaway for sure. Just look around you. Like Shane said, be more observant in your real life. It could be a stranger you see that might need something, but it could also just be right within your circle. So
I'm
really
going to give you an example. I walk every morning.
Nice.
For about 5 years, I have been saying hello to this same person. And it took her 5 years to finally say hello back. Now she always had her head down. She always had her headphones on, blah, 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 right? And she was like, walk by. And you could just tell she was uncomfortable for whatever reason. I have no idea, but she was uncomfortable. And every morning I'd say, hi, good morning. Hi, how are you? And it took her 5 years to finally reply back and say hi. That may have made a huge impact. It may not have, but the fact that it took her 5 years, but eventually she said hi. Same thing with an old grumpy Italian guy. I mean, he's always, walked and slumped and his head was down. And it only took me 6 months with him.
Good. A lot less time.
But all I was doing was making sure that they realized that I saw them. That was it.
Oh, that's wonderful.
That's it. It doesn't, and I mean, I'm not great friends with them. It's not like I know the Italian guy's name now. I don't know anything about her. But it's just people get lost.
Yes.
And they feel like nobody sees them, nobody cares. And that's one of the main reasons why suicide is so high. You talk to any homeless people and they said the worst thing is that people won't even look at them. So look at people.
Absolutely.
Look at them and say hi. It's not a huge initiative. It's something simple. Everybody can do it every single day.
Free.
It's not hard to do.
Yep. And the one key thing you said there, and you did, and this is the other thing, is consistency.
Yes.
You might not get it back, but you are saying hello every single day. That consistency is what people need to see, in that you are trustworthy because you are keeping yourself consistent, regardless of their emotion or how they respond, or whether they want it or not. Your consistency is the difference. And so that's wonderful. Yeah. And people have their own threshold of opening up. So the 5-year mark, that's her. You know what I mean? Yep. So whatever it takes, but that's really wonderful. I love hearing that. Very, very good. And like you said, anybody can do these things in their life.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
I want to tie this back into because this wraps around perfectly to the idea that when we were talking about how challenging it is to have these conversations in general, and sometimes it feels like we're not getting anywhere. The way I think about that is that we're planting seeds.
Yes. Good way to put it.
It may germinate immediately. It may germinate 5 years from now, right? And it doesn't always have to be something huge and dramatic. But when we're out there, we're having these conversations, even though it feels like we're not getting through, we are planting seeds. We're giving people something to think about. And I just had an example of that this week. We have a person who had been a fan of the Innocent Lives Foundation. They disappeared for about 3 years. And then last week, they showed back up and they were looking for us to do a training for them. And so this is the thing, the consistency.
Yes.
You keep showing up. We keep our head down. We do our work. We do our job. We do what we do. And eventually that shows through. But it can be disheartening if we don't take the right approach to it. It is for me. I don't know about you two, but so that's the way I have to address this in my mind.
You have to be doing this for the right reasons. And you do have to understand that this is a lifetime thing. This is not a part-time job. This is it.
Everywhere. It's everywhere. Absolutely. Absolutely. Just for the sake of time, Shane, I know we have about 10 minutes, and I have a couple more questions I definitely wanted to get in, but if there's anything in the chat, do you mind letting me know questions-wise for sure? Because I don't want to leave the audience hanging too if they have anything. But
there's no questions coming through.
Okay,
there's a lot of nice positive, yes, this is the right thing to say. Yes, you're doing the right thing.
Wonderful.
Yes, I'll do that.
Thank you so much. So if you're listening and you have a question you really want to answer, please put that into chat. Otherwise, again, we're going to roll as is. So next question, Lynda, would be, if the next generation could learn just one lesson from your work, and we kind of already have some of, paying attention and things like that. But what would you want it to be if they could learn one lesson from your specific work?
That anybody can be somebody's safe space. That it just, yeah, everybody, it's so easy to judge, you know, and when I'm talking to people, I get one or two reactions, right? You know, they're looking at me like, you must have done something wrong to have this happen to your daughter. And then the other ones are totally stunned. What? This happened to your daughter? You know, because we have judgments, we have pre-decided ideas on things. And it's not until we learn something a little bit more about it that we might potentially change those ideas.
Yeah.
We need to have a lot more people who are ready and willing to just accept you and whatever it is you're going through, your journey, and just come alongside you without throwing in their judgments on whether or not you're right or wrong. And it's hard to do because we all have preconceived ideas about things. And just to show up without judgment or criticism, it's not easy, especially if they're doing something you don't agree with.
Exactly.
But if you don't do that for people, the wrong people are going to come into their lives and they're going to fall farther down a slippery slope. And you may be that person that helps them from sliding down that slippery slope, or you may not be. But if you don't try, chances are they're going to slide down that slippery slope. So I really think that the next generation, I think they are starting to do it. I'm starting to listen and hear, and I do think they're beginning to realize, you know, we went through this whole woke generation where we weren't allowed to say anything about anybody because they would take offense. And before that, we said anything we wanted to about people, and we didn't care whether or not they took offense. And so now I just think, I'm hoping that pendulum comes back to the middle and we don't disrespect other people. We don't have to agree with them. We don't have to live like them. We don't have to do any of that. We are allowed to have our own opinions. But we need to be kind, and we need to be listening, and we need to be available. So if we could have our own opinions, not be afraid to share our opinions if people ask, don't just blurt out whatever you want to because you think you're right and everybody else is wrong. So share your opinions if you're asked, but just be there and just be somebody's safe space. If I could wrap up everything that I think is important in what I try to teach, that's it. And one of the things I say, and I say a lot in my workshops or when I'm talking, is we need to say, especially to people who we really care about, we need to say, I love you, but we need to add at the end of that, we need to say, I love you no matter what. Because my kids knew I loved them. We are a very affectionate family, hugs, kisses, tickle fights, you name it. We were, affectionate family. Said I love you all the time. But I don't know if I ever said I love you no matter what.
That's beautiful.
And if I had of, would Samantha have felt like she could have come and told me about what was happening without the fear that mom would put her hands on her hips? And now she come and told me when she realized she wasn't to blame, but would she have come and told me when she didn't realize she was to blame? And that's the key, because we can't help somebody out of something or through something if we don't know. And they're not going to come to us and talk to us because they don't want your judgments. They don't want your ideals. They don't want to be preached at. They don't want your disappointment. They don't want to hurt you. They don't want to put you through whatever it is they're going through. There's so many reasons why they won't come and talk to you. So we have to do what we can. I love you no matter what means. Somebody asked me once, so if your child killed somebody, would you still love them? Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I would not like what they did, but I would still love them.
Yep.
And even at that point, if it's self-defense or whatever the case, I'm sure there's, different, but I would not turn my back on him. I would not, and I would say why. And I would start being that person that they could tell me why they did it, what was going on, so that they didn't have to live with that extra burden of not even being able to talk about it. That's where we fail as humans. We want everybody to come and tell us everything that's going on so we can fix things for them, but then we don't allow them to be transparent with our judgment.
Yep. Yep. No, that is wonderful. Those 3 words, no matter what, at the
No
end of
matter
that
what.
make a massive difference.
I'm
It just,
actually getting t-shirts done up.
I
So
love
that
it.
on the front it says I love you, and on the back it says no matter what. So it doesn't matter
Oh,
which way you read that. Like if you read the
I
back first, no
know.
matter what, I love you, or no, I love you no matter what. So yeah, I'm getting t-shirts made up for that because
I
I
love
love it.
that.
Yeah.
It sounds so simple, but sometimes these simple things are so lost in our everyday life. Think about us with our phones. The one thing I do that I notice, because our children are the ones we need to pass this on to. And I always say to my kids, just be kind. Just be kind. So it's like my major lesson to them. But, I think about it, we make purposeful things in our household. Like if my children are trying to talk to me, I put my phone down and
Yes.
away. First of all,
Yes.
my ringer is never on at home when I'm off work with my children. No offense, Shane, but it's not. And
None taken, believe me.
I know, you're the best boss in the world with that. But it is usually off and down because I want my kids to see
Yes.
I am attentive, I am here. I
Yes.
am, yes, while I am distracted, mom might be playing a game later on that night or whatever.
Yep.
But right now, when I'm asking you how your day was, and I never asked the words, how was your day? Because with a child, you're going to get fine,
Mhm.
whatever you might
Mhm.
get. I always say, can you give me some good things that happened today and
Yes.
maybe a bad thing that happened today?
Yes.
Or I ask in different ways to just pull things out of them. But like you said, they need to know it's unconditional, and that makes a major difference in terms of them sharing. And we always think of judgment, but man, did you hit on one when you said disappointment, because that is another one, that a big fear of people, of disappointment. As a
It's a type
therapist,
of judgment.
well,
It is.
as
Yeah.
a
It
therapist,
is.
people are afraid to disappoint me and say something and I'm here for that. So if I'm giving the vibe, I feel awful if I'm giving you that vibe that you would disappoint me, because that's the last thing that I would want. So you're absolutely right. That is just such a wonderful takeaway. I love you no matter what. That is just beautiful. That's really,
I
really
know
That
we're
is.
running out of time here, but I also want to pile on one more thing talking about this judgment and bias. And the reality is when we teach our children an awareness of our biases, right? And so we teach them not to be so judgmental. And like you said, right, doesn't mean that you agree with what a person does, but you also recognize they have the right to their behavior in many, many cases. So when you do that, though, you're teaching critical thinking. And when you're
Yes.
teaching critical thinking, you're helping your children to protect themselves from manipulation in the
Good point.
yes,
first place. And
very good
so
point.
all of these things tie together.
Yep.
That's a really good point, because you could be kind but manipulated, and so you want them to have that's an extra sense. Absolutely, that's a really good point, Shane, to tie that in there, because you do
Yep.
need to teach that to your children again. To again, how do you balance that? How do you be kind to everybody, but not to be put into a position of people using that kindness against you?
Yes.
Very good point. Very,
Yes.
very good point. And my kids know hard knocks because of what I do. I'm pretty brutally honest with the real world. So, and again, I feel like we have to be honest with our
Mhm.
children. We
Yes.
have to. We have to be honest. They are faced with so many things we don't even realize. So, you're not going to, I feel like as a parent, we're not going to scar them. It's going to come from what they're exposed to outside of us. So,
Well, when you
yeah.
can do that and you can be transparent. I mean, as much as my kids hated the fact that I was transparent, because I was all through their growing up. If I
Hmm.
was having a bad day, they kind of knew it. I mean, I didn't take it out on them, but they knew it. I
Yeah.
never hid it.
Yeah. You
If my
shouldn't.
husband and I were disagreeing about something, we didn't hide that from them.
Hmm.
Um, it allows them to see that it's okay
Yes.
to have a bad day. It's okay that you're not always 100% going to be googly eyed and falling all over each other because you have a partner.
Absolutely.
And those real life things that you're transparent about, that you're allowing them in to see, make it so that when those things happen to them, they don't feel like somehow they're doing something wrong. This is just life. This is their journey.
Absolutely. Great, great point. This has been a wonder. I could go for another hour or two. I can't even believe an hour passed. But Lynda, this has been wonderful. And I hope you viewers listening in, realize how amazing this is going to be, this concept of Fireside coming back. Lynda, I think you are made for this role. I think, your friends in the past who have encouraged you to move forward were really smart in that. It's something Shane and I saw in you as well. You have a very good passion for this, and I think it is wonderful that you found us, but now we have you. So I think it's a wonderful win, and I think these fireside chats are going to be phenomenal moving forward. I'm really excited about being part of them. So
I am too. I
good,
think it's a good fit.
good. Thank you for coming along. I can't tell you enough. It's been great. Yes. So in conclusion, any major things, Shane, on chat end, or are we good? Does everything seem like it's been wrapped up? I think the positive comments are wonderful. I appreciate you guys listening and adding comments. We will, get this uploaded at some point and onto YouTube, but for now, obviously, it's here in Twitch. And I just want to thank everybody for listening in tonight. Please tune in next time. We are having them the second Tuesday,
the third Tuesday of every month at 7 o'clock.
Third Tuesday of every month. Please join us 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, and we will have Lynda is going to line up guests. We will sometimes have ILF on as well to hang out and chat like tonight. So please continue to join us, and thank you for your time.
Please tell your friends.
Yes.
Help us to
Spread
be
the
able
word.
to spread the word. Yes.
Spread the word. Absolutely. Well, thank you again.
Thanks,
thank you, everybody. Have a great night.
Good night, everyone.